Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's right over there with me. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on, Reg?
Man, what's going on, Ken?
Just enjoying overall, enjoying a good football season. Right, good season for the Washington Commanders.
Well, it has been a good season, man. I don't think many of us would have predicted a 7-3 start to our season back in August training camp. In fact, a lot of people were complaining about the coaches, you know,
Yep.
and there was a lot of talk about, how this team is going to be and how long it would take to rebuild this thing. And there was a lot of hopes, a lot of wishful thinking, and I guess a lot of living right by some people, man, because it looks like we found a franchise quarterback and got this thing turned around in a hurry.
Yeah.
7-3, Ken, we're talking, in a very low key way. People are afraid to do it, but they're talking playoffs.
Playoffs.
Playoffs? Talking about playoffs?
Yeah, and they should be at this point, right? I mean, even coming off the loss against the Steelers this past week, you can take several things out of that, right? Overall, they played well. They shot themselves in the foot numerous times with a couple bad penalties, a handful of dropped balls and punts, and those are things that you learn quickly in this league. As a team gels together, that you can't do that against playoff teams. You can't do that in the playoffs, right? You look at that game as a playoff game, and you just can't do those types of things. And teams that have been together, you got to remember, this is a team that is basically almost a expansion team. I know it's not exactly an expansion team, but there's so many new parts, right? It's a brand new quarterback, rookie quarterback. It's new running back. It's half of the line is different. Half of the team is different. All new coaches, all new ownership, all new GM. It's not as starting as low as an expansion team, but as far as a team gelling together, offensive and defense, it's an expansion team, right?
Okay.
And I know maybe I'm going out there a little bit far, and I admit that there's some level of exaggeration on that, but it's not too terribly far. It's not too terribly far. It's an all new defensive system. It's an all new offensive system. Everything about this team, other than I literally a handful of players, is brand new to this team.
Okay.
And so for it to be able to gel like it has is pretty remarkable.
Well, everyone felt like for things to go right for Washington this season, that a lot of things had to fall perfectly in the right place for us. And needless to say, I think a lot of it has come to fruition, right? Little bit of the fact that we're 7-3, and some people would seem a little dissatisfied with the 7-3 record is simply because the 3 losses that came against good teams. And so the question kind of that lingers out there is, well, we're good, but we must not be good enough, because it's not like, we beat teams that we're supposed to beat, and that's what you're supposed to do. But we lost to Tampa, we lost to Baltimore, we lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, all of the better teams that we've played thus far this season, and we're 0-3 against them. And that's the caliber and the quality of teams that we're going to face in the playoffs. And so you have to show, improve, if nothing else, just to yourself as a team, but also to the fans, that, hey, we can compete with these guys and also win some of these games. And up to this point, through 10 games, we're 0-3 against those quality type of teams. That's not to say that you play them in the playoffs that you can't win, but up to this point, that's the one thing that I think, myself included, has a little hesitation and a little reservations about how good is this team, because you're not going to play, the New York Giants in the playoffs, right?
Right.
we played them twice, and that's 2 of our 7 wins. Granted, the Cincinnati and Arizona teams, those teams look a little bit better today than they did when we played them. But again, you're gonna play top caliber, high quality teams in the playoffs, and to the point that you made, whether we committed some of these penalties, these faux pas that happened during the game.
What?
Was it because of come on, man. You know what a faux pas is?
A faux pas?
Oh, what did I say? Faux pas.
Faux pas.
Boy, thinking of something else.
There we go. Finally. You get to laugh at everything that I say. but main man Reggie, when you ride shotgun, you got to do those things to make me look good. And I appreciate it. But go ahead.
Hey, faux pas. Your poop was something else, yeah.
Exactly.
Man, Mama, I didn't mean to say that. In case you're listening, Mama, that's not what I was talking about. I was saying a faux pas. But man, you made me lose my train of thought on this, man. It's X-rated tonight. But listen,
do you want me to pick this up? Well, let me pick it up real quick.
Hand this off.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying here, but one little comparison I'm going to throw out real quick as I was kind of going through this is from where we started. I'll say, let's say before the draft, right? Before free agency, before the draft, to where we are now, and then you look at to compare a team. Look at the New York Jets. Right? They were thought that they had a playoff caliber team. They went and got Aaron Rodgers. All of a sudden, they traded for Devontae Adams. They made some other big moves in the offseason, even with their draft picks and some free agents. They were kind of like Super Bowl or bust type of attitude, and they're not even close to being 500. And they got a coach fired, right? So it just goes to show that putting a team together is more than just a group of players, right? It's the right players for the right fits. The players that are willing to be coached, and and going from there. Again, I'm not trying to oversell this, but it just goes to show, there's nobody that would have thought that the Commanders were going to be better halfway through the season, a little bit beyond halfway, than the New York Jets when the season started, with the talent that was at least perceived to be there. Right.
And to that point, and back to kind of what I was getting at here, is with Washington playing a higher caliber quality of an opponent, was it more of what they forced us into doing, making mistakes and things of that nature? Or was it simply a situation of it was just not our day and we made some mistakes that ultimately cost us the game? And I don't know the answer to that, because when we played Baltimore, and certainly when we played Pittsburgh, there were some things that were very uncharacteristic of this team. And, you have to give credit to those teams. But again, I don't know if it was those teams forcing us to play a style that we weren't used to, create some issues, create some errors, pre-snap errors and that type of deal, or was it just simply we were just not focused in on that day and just made some mental mistakes? And I don't know the answer to that. But the bottom line is we've not beaten those caliber of teams, and so therefore there still remains a little bit of a question mark of just how good this team is. Could we ultimately be the weakest team in the playoff? We get in and yeah, we didn't just squeak in, but you rank all of the playoff teams, where would we be ranked among those teams? Because at this point, we're not going to be a Super Bowl favorite.
Right.
But are we going to be a one and done team because we're just not good enough yet? And but I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, man, because this week we have a division game. This would be our third division game. We played the Giants twice, and this will be our now third division game as we play on Thursday night against the Philadelphia Eagles. So fun fact here, man. Ken and I here in Dallas, and we have our fan club where we go to the bar and watch the Commanders play on Sundays. And ironically, it also serves as an Eagles bar here in Dallas. And so the bar is big enough and has been designed to the point that when we are playing at the exact same time, doors are closed, it's soundproof, and you can't hear anything going from the other side, and vice versa. They can't hear us unless there's a loud roar, loud cheer type of deal. But otherwise, you can't hear the games from their room, and they can't hear the game from our room, and we coexist. But on this Thursday, we will be playing, and I don't know how crowded the bar will be, but it's just an interesting fun fact that we do share a fan club bar. Our fan clubs share the same bar here in the local Dallas area, and so it does get a little interesting sometimes. You're going to have your trolls, the people that love to come in and kind of poke fun, type of a deal, and I personally tend to stay away from these people just because I know how I can be and how I can get when people come in and try to troll.
Right.
And to be quite honest, they typically wait till the game is over, wait until we've lost the game, or wait till we're losing the game against an opponent and even against themselves. And then they come in and want to talk a little noise and stuff, but they're nowhere to be found prior to the game. They wait till after the game, and that's the part that kind of irks me a little bit. If you come in, talk a little smack, a little trash talking before the game started, it's all fun, right? But they wait till the game is over, and then they decide to want to come in and kind of run their mouths a little bit, and that's the part that gets me a little irked. So it's best usually when the game is over, I kind of get out of there. Let me just get out of here. There's nothing good going to come out of this. People have been drinking a little liquor, little alcohol, and little testosterone could be a little high in the bar at that point. So I tend to just kind of separate myself and get on out of the bar at that time.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes one or two, right? And overall, they're not nearly as bad as what you see the people actually in Philly. The way they act a fool and berate and bully opposing teams and fans or whatever. It's not even close to that. But to piggyback on that, it's also the bar of the Pittsburgh Steelers that we're playing back to back. And let me just tell you, with Washington has, on a good week, we have 75 to 100 Commanders fans. Equal that, maybe a pinch more for Philadelphia because they've had a lot of success. And then the Steelers room is even bigger. When those three teams are playing at the same time, there are no other teams in the bar, right? They max this out, and altogether we're easily talking 400 people in the bar. And there's another section outside that's another 100 people. So it's a good sized bar. It's a good place to watch football games.
And more often than not, we're all playing at the same time because we're all East Coast teams, and so a lot of our games are going to be noon here locally, 1 o'clock on the East Coast. And so more often than not, the Eagles and the Steelers and the Commanders are playing roughly at the same time.
Yeah.
But this week is going to.
Yeah, the bad thing about that is it takes a little while to get your order from the back of the bar. It takes a minute.
Kitchen gets a little crowded.
Yeah, but this week is a Thursday night game, and I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think both teams coming off of a short week. For Washington, it was a home game, and so going up to Philadelphia is a bus ride, right? They're not. I don't think that they're probably flying up there. Maybe they are. I don't know. But Philadelphia had to play a late game in Dallas, took care of them. But by the time they probably got on the plane and got home, it was midnight, right? And they didn't get a good night's sleep. They do get to play at home, but hopefully they're a little tired. Hopefully it takes them another day and a half to get ahead from us. But when you win, it's easier to keep on going, and they did win. When we review, you look at Philadelphia, and especially this year, you look at the team, and the first person you think about this year is Saquon Barkley, right? And the production that they're having overall as a team. But their wins they're on a 5-game winning streak, but their wins haven't been against caliber, what the NFL would consider caliber teams. It's basically the same teams that we've been playing. They beat Cleveland in a close game. They beat the Giants. They beat the Bengals. They beat Jacksonville, and they beat the Cowboys. So again, how is that any different than where we are? So, and I only say that I think a lot of people at this moment have Philly at a higher level. And maybe part of that is, they're on a 5-game winning streak, and they've been productive the last few years. This isn't, a 1-year brand new thing for them. But Saquon Barkley is the man to stop, right? This year, Saquon Barkley is the man to stop. What are your thoughts of initial thought this year when you think of Philadelphia and playing them?
Well, I will also add to a common opponent here is that they played Tampa just as we did, and we lost to Tampa week 1, and Tampa lost to Tampa. Philly lost to Tampa as well. I don't remember what week it was, but it's another week common 4. Opponent that we played, but they lost to them as well. Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley obviously still has some juice, still has talent. Unlike what the Giants believe, the Giants, I think, if they had a do-over, Saquon Barkley would still be wearing New York blue. But he's wearing the Philly green at this point. And if I'm being honest, man, Saquon Barkley doesn't scare me. I think we have to be concerned about him due to his ability. As I just mentioned, he still has juice in the tank. But he doesn't scare me as much. When we played Baltimore, the combination of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson concerned me more than Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. That's not to say that we should take them lightly. They could easily walk. We could easily go up there and they could run all over us between the two of them.
Right.
But we've had some success against both of these players, not as on the same team, but certainly against them individually. And so I'm not overly concerned about them. Look at some of my notes here. Okay, here we go. So the point that I was making about that, rushing, they are third in the league in rushing as a team. I'm sorry, second, because we're third. They're second in the league in rushing, but defensively, Washington against the rush is 29. And even when I was prepping for this and I saw that, I knew we wasn't a top rushing defense, but I was a little surprised to find us to be so far down as a rush defense. So a 29 rush defense against a team that is second in the league in rushing makes for a bad combination.
Right.
But one thing I will always say, that division games against each other, you can essentially throw records out. I know this will be Philly's first time facing the Dan Quinn-led Washington Commanders team, but for some reason, division games just pan out the way in which they do. They're hard fought, they're grinding, upsets happen all the time, and the records just do not matter, and that kind of thing. But I know that was a long way around for me to just say, even though the numbers shade more in favor of Philadelphia because of their run game, Saquon in the running game, I'm not as overly concerned. But we have to be something we have to be prepared for.
To me, I look at Saquon Barkley, and it seems like this is only in my mind. I'm not going back and looking at stats, but it seems like Washington, win or lose, when he was with the Giants, we would contain him, and then he would have one big play. Contain him, and all of a sudden he'd have another big play. It was like when you look at his stats for the day, he'd have 100 yards and one touchdown, but the one touchdown and 48 of the yards was on one play, and
Yep.
and that's good and bad, right? That you're containing him, but he also can break one and make a game changing play. And so I'm interested in this. When I look at this, I see Washington. You mentioned about Washington being number 3 in the run, and that's based off of even last week of us not having a real run focused game plan and attempts against Pittsburgh. But I think this week, especially if B-Rob is back, I think this game's going to have not exactly come down to it, but it's going to be a line of scrimmage type of game. Who's going to be able to run against the other person's defense? Is the defense going to be able to contain Hurts? Is Philly defense going to be able to contain
Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels. And now that there's a game plan a little bit on how to keep Jaden from going crazy that Pittsburgh did, I think more people are going to try to do those little things. I mean, you have to have the right personnel to be able to do that. And Jaden didn't play a bad game, right? I heard one announcer actually said that was, I don't necessarily totally agree with him, but he said in his opinion this was the best game that Jaden Daniels had, because they did cut everything off. He was still able to function. He was able to show that I'm not about running. Everything isn't revolved about running. You took that away, and we were still productive. Not as productive as some past games, and especially again, you add, take away the 5 or 6 drop balls, and the offense was moving. With those catches, the offense would have been moving. And again, that only speaks volumes to Jaden Daniels' game and where he's going to be next week, and next year, and 5 years from now. It's going to be a good adjustment to see what Washington does, because they're going to see more people trying to emulate what Pittsburgh did this past week to slow Jaden down.
Yeah, but you it's one thing to have the game plan. It's another thing to be able to execute.
Correct.
And Pittsburgh was not only had the game plan, but they executed it well in order to contain Jaden Daniels. Question becomes, can the next teams that we play the rest of this year will probably have a similar game plan, but can they execute the
right.
said game plan? And but that's neither here nor there. The other part to this thing here is will be injuries, right? It's a short week, and there were still question marks about Cornelius Lucas, Brandon Coleman. Then there was Andrew Wiley, Brian Robinson, and Marshawn Lattimore, right? These are all key guys that will have a hand in how well we're suited up and can play. I saw a poll on Twitter, and I'll ask you, Ken. If you had one guy that you would choose to be healthy on Thursday, healthy and play, Brian Robinson or Marshawn Lattimore, who you picking?
I'm probably going to go. I'm probably going to go against the grain of whatever the poll was, and I'm going to say B-Rob.
Why?
I think establishing the run game and control is big. And I think the combination of B-Rob running hard, Eckler doing a handful of runs and catching it out of the backfield, the blocking that he also does, that is a tough duo to stop in the NFL. As good as Barkley is, when Eckler and B-Rob are both healthy and and rolling with Jaden Daniels in the offensive line, that's extremely hard to stop.
Okay.
But I fully understand the argument of Lattimore, basically shutting down one player. Then you're playing 10 on 10. And I fully understand that argument. What's your view and take on that? And also, what was the poll? What were the results of the poll?
It was overwhelming, and it leaning in the direction like 60 something to 30s, 38%, 62 or something like that in favor of Marshawn Lattimore. I thought that was the easy, low hanging fruit way to go with Marshawn Lattimore.
Yep.
But given where we are today, the way I looked at it was I voted for Brian Robinson because I said even with Marshawn Lattimore playing Thursday, realistically, how well versed is he on the defense? And how healthy is he? Is he fully 100%, or would he be at 90, 95%? Brian Robinson, to your point, to me is I mentioned earlier that we've lost, we're 0-3 against some of the playoff caliber teams. In two of those games, Brian Robinson didn't play. He didn't play against Baltimore. He did not play this past Sunday against Pittsburgh. And although we lost both of those games by a combined score of 8 points, could Brian Robinson been the difference in either of those games? And so in a game against Philadelphia, I agree with you that I think that he would be there to help establish the run game, which hopefully would lead to ball control, time of possession, and open up the passing game, and just have to force Philadelphia to be respectful of everything that comes with Brian Robinson, the combination of Brian Robinson and Jake Daniels. And then that puts Austin Eckler back in his familiar role, which is his third down, or lining up both of those guys in the backfield and one of them catching balls out of the backfield. So it just gets our offense back into a sync that we have had most of this year and been successful. So I voted and kind of feel the same way that it would be Brian Robinson. But I think being a prisoner of the moment, everyone is like, oh, we need our shutdown corner to go shut down A.J. Brown. And I think the defense is better this year, obviously, than what we've had in past years past. And maybe I'm hoping that the scheme that Joe Witt and some of the players that they have will be such that, you may not be able to shut A.J. Brown down, but you hope to contain him, right? There's also the fact that Devontae Smith is questionable. So being that it's a short week, he may not even play. So now you're focused on A.J. Brown as your primary receiver to have to defend. But with that being a transition, if Devontae Smith does not play, then that gives the increased reps for one Jahan Dotson, formerly known as Jahan 1, and former first-round pick of our Washington Commanders. I think altogether, since he's been traded since week 3 or 4, something like that, the guy has, I don't think he even have 100 yards.
Well, he was traded before the first game.
Was it before the first game?
He was traded right before cuts. So he was there week 1. He has a total of 8 catches for 98 yards.
There you go.
So that's less than a catch a game.
But if Devontae Smith does not play, he will get some increased reps. And just the way Philadelphia is, not only as their fans, but the organization and certainly their head coach, Nick Sirianni, would not surprise me if there's some extra targets, extra plays inserted and called for Jahan Dotson to try to get him juiced up at playing his former team. I mean, hell, he was drafted by us in the first round and played 2 seasons for us. And but nonetheless, I personally don't. I think he'll be a non-factor, but I could see the Philadelphia Eagles trying to make a statement and have Jahan have a big game.
Yeah, but I mean, if I want to flip that, Jahan wasn't able to get open on these cornerbacks all preseason, all training camp, or he'd still be on the team, right? And so, any criticism that you give to St. Juice and anybody else back there, they were able to take care of Dotson to get him traded, right? So they're not worried about Dotson.
Yeah, trust me, I'm not worried about John Dotson.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame, right?
He's the least of my words.
Yeah, it's a shame that it came to that. But it is what it is. And hey, the other 14 weeks, hopefully he does okay, but not when he's playing against the Burgundy and Gold. I think we still need to keep an eye on their tight end, Goddard. It seems like he always has a key, 2 or 3 catches. He might end up with 5, but there'll be 2 or 3 where it'll be, 3rd and 6, and somehow he gets that 7th yard, and the referees actually mark it correctly, so they pick up a first down, unlike what the refs did last week on the final play. But
but again, this, the Eagles have been one of the premier teams in our division, and this year is no exception. They got off to a slow start because I think they had some injuries. AJ Brown missed, I think, the first 4 games. And then at some point they had some games where AJ Brown and Devontae Smith were both out. It's documented that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni was not on the same page, and there was some bad blood going on between them. But they've since gotten healthy and worked out some kinks, I guess. From what I heard, that during the bye week, the quarterback and head coach got on the same page and those types of things. And we've seen it. They've gotten it turned around. And so they've been nipping at our heels. And the fact that we lost to Pittsburgh on Sunday, they were able to leapfrog us, I think, by half a game in the division. So they are technically the division leaders. If the season ended today, they would win the division. I know a lot of people have said that this is not a big game. I'm not sure how people can say that personally, but I think this is a big game. I think it's a measuring stick game. I think it is obviously for first place in the division, being that it's the first of 2 matchups, and then it sets the tone for the rest of the season, because after this game here, there's
7 total,
7 games left. And if you start looking at who Washington has left and who the Eagles have left, it's a little different. So let me just tell you real quick. So of the 7 games, the Eagles still have to play the surging Rams. They still have to play Baltimore. They still have to play Pittsburgh. And then they still have another game against us. So it's 4 more tough games out of the 7 that they play. The other 3 games that are suspect for them would be the Panthers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Giants. Okay. Now, by comparison, our remaining 7 games, 6. 6 because we need our bye week.
Well, 7 including this week's game.
Right. But the Eagles have 7. We have 6.
No. There's 17 games. We've played 10. Right.
But they have 1 more extra game.
Yes. They've got 8 games. Correct.
Right. So by virtue of that, they have 1 extra game. So that being the case, we have I'm going to call it just a tough opponent. Remember, I just mentioned the Eagles have 4.
Right.
By virtue of us, that I would consider a tough opponent would be the Eagles, second game against the Eagles.
Yep. Twice. Yep.
And the Falcons. Because our next opponents would be the Cowboys twice, Tennessee Titans, and the New Orleans Saints. So,
yeah. I think even though
let me be clear, Washington could lose any of those games, but the schedule looks a whole lot different. So if you go and you win this game on Thursday, and based on the matchups of the rest of our opponents between the Eagles and the Commanders the next as the season goes on, their schedule's a lot harder.
Yeah, I think if you take our 7 games and to show how important the game is in playing Philadelphia, out of 7 games that you have left, if you go 3-4, but 2 of those 3 wins are against Philadelphia, you beat Philadelphia both times, and 1 more game, you should win the division.
Okay.
There's no guarantee, but looking at their schedule and other tough teams that they're playing, you're taking care of the work within the division, right? You win the 2 games against Philadelphia and you beat the Cowboys one of the games. That should do it for you. Again, this is just shoulda, coulda, woulda. You got to do it.
That's assuming your record is better, overall record.
And even if you're tied, you're probably going to have a better division record with all the wins. You would have only lost to the Cowboys 1 time in that scenario that I'm laying out. And Philly would have lost at least 2 to us. So again, based off of that. But again, that's just
I only say that to say that it goes to show you how big this game is. It's a division game, obviously, but there are bigger implications just simply based on the fact of what the schedule looks like for both teams going forward after this game on Thursday. So you give yourself a big leg up, assuming you take care of business against the rest of those teams that I mentioned from Washington's perspective.
Well, clearly this is a year that we're halfway, more than halfway through the season, and we don't need any help from anybody, right? You can take care of your business. You don't have to win the last 7. You don't have to go on some ridiculous 7-game winning streak, and these teams need to lose, 3 out of 4, and all this kind of mess where we've been in past years. Well, we're still in it. Things could happen. We're not in that situation. We're driving the bus. We just need to stay on track and do the things that you need to do to beat these teams. And time will take care of itself.
Well, I don't disagree. And with that being the case, how confident are you that we're going to win, Ken?
Man, Reggie just teed that up, and man, I drove that like 400 yards.
DJ Ken.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
It's your favorite segment, man. I know it.
It's not mine. It's the listeners. It's the listeners, man. Yeah. Okay. Do we need maybe I'll make a drop of that.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
At any rate, man.
I will go ahead. I know the last couple of weeks you've given your number first as far as the confidence level of where we feel like we're going to walk away with the win. It's not a score. It's not will we win. It's how confident are we that we're going to win? On a scale of 1 to 10. I'm concerned about. I wish you could tell me right now, the time that we're doing the podcast, who's hurt and who's not hurt, right?
Correct.
But I don't have that information, so I'm actually going to kind of assume that most. Not Lattimore. I'm assuming Lattimore is not going to play, but I'm going to go with the premise that everybody else. Pardon me?
He did not practice today.
Correct. He has not practiced since he's been in Washington yet. Right. And so I'm going to go with the assumption that he's not playing.
Okay.
But I'm going to go with the assumption that everybody else is. B-Rob had some limited practice. Again, this is a short week. It might be literally a game time decision like it was last week, but I'm going to go with the premise that he's playing. If he's playing, our offensive line, most of those guys are back and playing. I think we walk away with a win here. And I think there'll be a little bit of a scare maybe here and there where they stick around and make it an interesting game. And not that Washington's going to pull away, but I see Washington taking care of business this week. Maybe even surprising a few people nationally that think this is going to be a tight game. But I think Washington potentially makes this an ugly game. An ugly game as far as making Philadelphia not look like they are that team. Yeah, Barkley's good and AJ Brown is good, but if we can keep them from hitting those home run type of plays, I think we make them look mediocre this week. And with all that said, it's a long way of me getting around saying that I've got a 7. I've got a solid 7 that we're going to pull it out this week. I feel better this week than I did against Pittsburgh. Right? I think Pittsburgh's
Really?
I don't know that Pittsburgh's a better team. They're definitely a much better coached team. And because of their coaching, they put together a game plan. And I knew they would put a game plan that would make it challenging for our offense. And I don't think that Philadelphia can match what Pittsburgh did all the way around.
Okay. All right. So 7. Well, for me, I agree. Start out that I wish I had a better understanding of exactly who was playing and who's not. But ironically, this game is a lot of reminiscing of what took place last week, meaning we got a team that's coming in with a good defense. We got a team that's coming in with a mobile quarterback and a good running back. Najee Harris and I forgot the other guy. It was a good running team. Pittsburgh is.
Right.
Russell Wilson can still get out there and move around and scramble and do all the things that he's doing. So just like Jalen Hurts can do. And they're good defensively. So if nothing else, in a losing effort, I think the Pittsburgh game gave us a little insight and a glimpse into what we were going to be facing this week against Philadelphia. I'm not going to go as far as to say that Pittsburgh concerned me more. And maybe it's just my fear of playing a division opponent. So I'm just as nervous about it. I was initially going to give my number 6, but I'm going to go a little higher. The spread for this game is 3.5 to Philadelphia, which is interesting. Which is interesting that just how much Washington has closed the gap, because in years past, us playing on the road in Philadelphia, that spread is a lot bigger than 3.5, because 3 points is typically home field advantage. And so clearly Vegas feels like this game could go either way as well. So with that being said, man, I hate to copy you, but I'm going to give it a 7, maybe even willing to give it a 7.5, but certainly a solid 7 that I think that we win this game. I think this is a new year, a new regime. And again, a team that Philadelphia has not seen. Things are different in Washington. And I think some old common friends and foes and organizations alike are starting to realize just how different things are going to be. And I think that on a prime time Thursday night, I think the world and also the people of Philadelphia will realize things are a little different down south in D.C. And so I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to even go up. I haven't talked myself into another 0.5 point, man. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 on the confidence scale. So,
man, went up another 1.5 points.
Live.
I agree. While you're here, what you were saying through your explanation, but I think that this short week actually benefits Washington more than it benefits Philadelphia.
I agree.
We got a bad taste in our mouth because the win was there for us, and it's tough for Philadelphia to get ready for Washington and the things that Jaden Daniels does that quickly, to implement it, to try to run it in practice, to do the things that they need to do. It's not that they can't do it, but it's more of a challenge for them than Washington.
Because here's the thing.
We'll see Thursday night if that ends up being the case or not. But
and I fully agree with you, because here's one thing. We know that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt has schemed against Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts before. Even
Right.
say he schemed against Saquon Barkley, but they've never schemed against Cliff Kingsbury, Austin Eckler, and a combination with Jake Daniels and Brian Robinson as well. So
Right.
to your point, they have a little less time to prepare, but Dan Quinn and Joe Witt can pull from old notes from their days in Dallas and know how they've done some things that have worked against Jalen Hurts and those guys. But they've never faced Jake Daniels with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. So there's a little bit of unknown, even though there's footage on film.
Right.
And they can go back and watch the past 8 weeks. They've not physically been able to do it and see what works in their system with their players. So to your point, I do agree that I think the short week may be a little bit of an advantage to Washington as well.
Are you prepared to go another half point?
No, leaving at 7.5.
You're locked in at 7.5.
I'm locked it in, brother.
Well, very good, very good. You got a 7 and a 7.5 there. My main man Reggie couldn't be outdone with my 7. He had to go a half a notch higher. And
hey, man, I talked myself into it.
I can appreciate that. That's the advantage of the person that goes second. Can hopscotch right on over and take the higher rung on the ladder. So,
yeah.
But that's all I got. I can't wait for the game on Thursday night.
Go.
Go Burgundy and Gold. Go Commanders. And until next time, peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out, yo.